Treasury actually flipped the switch. And now we get to find out what Iranian oil at the dock is worth when the clock runs out August 21st. If you're just tuning in, the U.S.-Iran talks are happening under the Islamabad MOU, a 60-day framework meant to turn the ceasefire into a final deal. J.D. Vance and Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf have been meeting in Switzerland, with sanctions relief, frozen assets, nuclear limits, the Strait of Hormuz, and Lebanon all crammed into the same package.
This is Iran War Daily. Today, Washington partially lifts Iran oil sanctions, and the question is whether that's a peace move, a market move, or a 60-day trap. Rich, let's start with what actually got signed. From Al Jazeera.
The U.S. Treasury issued a 60-day sanctions waiver on Monday, paving the way for the production, delivery, and sale of Iranian oil to the U.S. The move came amid positive reports from mediators and the U.S. Vice President regarding talks in Switzerland between Washington and Tehran aimed at establishing a full peace deal.
So the deal track finally has something concrete. Treasury issued a 60-day sanctions waiver Monday, per Al Jazeera, paving the way for Iranian oil production, delivery, and sale to the U.S. It's a condition baked into the June 17 MOU.
Right. And this is the executive lever I kept circling. Congress didn't repeal anything. Treasury used a general license. So it's revocable, and it's got a hard expiry, August 21st. So I can stop asking whether Washington could flip the switch. They flipped it. Now I want to know whether a single barrel of Iranian crude actually clears and gets paid for before that waiver runs out.
Besant's framing it as reciprocal, says Iran's committed to free transit in Hormuz and to letting IAEA inspectors back in. That's his characterization of Tehran's side on social media. We'll track whether the inspectors actually land.
Okay, so when Washington says it's partially lifting Iran oil sanctions after encouraging talks, are we looking at a peace gesture, a market cooling move? And who feels it first? Tehran, traders on a trading floor somewhere, or someone filling up their tank?
Honestly, it's doing both jobs at once, and that's kind of the point. On Monday, the U.S. Treasury issued what's called a general license, a 60-day waiver running through August 21st, authorizing the production, delivery, and sale of Iranian crude oil and petrochemical products, per Al Jazeera and confirmed by Reuters. The market felt it almost immediately. Brent crude prices fell and equity markets rebounded. That tracks with what we saw back in March, when Trump signaled a pause in strikes and called talks constructive. Oil dropped sharply that day, too, per BBC reporting. So traders are absolutely the first responders here. For Tehran, the tangible piece is what's already sitting on the water. CNBC reports roughly 67 million barrels of Iranian crude that's been stranded, mostly in the Gulf, could now move. That unlocks what analysts are calling a significant financial windfall worth billions. Chinese state and independent refineries are expected to be the main buyers ramping up purchases during this window, per that same CNBC reporting. But there's a catch, from a Reuters analysis published Tuesday. Unwinding more than 4 decades of sanctions is legally and commercially tangled enough that the full economic benefit to Iran takes time to materialize, even with the waiver in place.
So if traders price this in within hours, but the legal knots take months to untangle, does Washington actually have meaningful leverage left to walk this back if the talks stall?
That's the tension. The waiver lasts only 60 days, so Washington gets a built-in expiration date as leverage. But the core sticking points, Iran's nuclear program and who controls the Strait of Hormuz, are still unresolved after the Swiss talks wrapped up, with Tehran explicitly reaffirming it intends to maintain oversight of the strait, per Al Monitor and AFP. VP Vance called the Switzerland round a very good foundation. I'd put the emphasis on foundation. There's no final deal there yet. If those two issues don't move by mid-August, watch whether Treasury renews, lets the waiver lapse, or ties renewal explicitly to IAEA access. That sequence will tell you more about where this deal actually stands than any statement will. If Iran War Daily helps you stay informed, take a moment to subscribe and leave a review wherever you're listening. It really helps other people find the show and follow the story with us. What we're watching next. The Treasury license runs through August 21st. If talks stall before then, sanctions relief becomes the next leverage point. You'll find links to every story we covered today in the show notes. So if one piece is especially important to you, that's the place to dig in. That's Iran War Daily for today. This is a Lantern podcast.